Boom. Longhorns land Josiah Sharma, defensive lineman out of Folsom, California. A big pickup for the Longhorns. They did it yesterday evening, Jerry. And I tell you what, I know that you and CJ were on live talking about it a lot yesterday, but you and I wanted to circle back if possible and really look a little bit deeper into him. We're going to have Rod Babers come on and do his breakdown that he's so good at as well a little bit later in this episode. But let's just start with what this means for Texas, flipping Josiah Sharma, 6'4.5", 6'5", 320+ pounds, out of Folsom, California, from Oregon to Texas.
Well, there's just not many guys that are 6'4.5", 320, 325, 315, whatever it is. He fluctuates, all right, that have first and second step quickness to the level he does, have the agility to play from tackle to tackle like he does and pursue the football down the line of scrimmage. Then has the natural strength and punch he has, initial contact, I should say, not punch, that he has at that frame. And he's raw, of course, like most guys are. It's a developmental position, but there just aren't many guys that have that combination, Bobby. And I've said it before, and I'm out on the limb on it, but it reminds me of Shawn Rogers. I mean, that's who he reminds me of. He can play over the ball. He can play a tilt. He can play a three. He can be a disruptive player. He's going to be able to play the run. He's going to be able to rush the passer well enough because of the athleticism, length, and frame and everything that comes with it. But there just aren't many defensive linemen that have this size and ability. And I've said it, you know how good, if anybody's wondering how good this kid is, Kalen DeBoer had him committed at Washington, went to Alabama. There's unbelievable numbers of talented defensive linemen in the Deep South, and they still had him a top 2 or 3 guy on the board.
If for those younger people out there, just to give you a glimpse of what Jerry and how good Jerry thinks Josiah Sharma can be, Shawn Rogers played 13 years in the NFL. Okay, 3-time Pro Bowl selection, and he was bonus size, 6'4", 350 pounds by the time he got out of college. He was the running mate of Casey Hampton, another great interior defensive lineman for the Longhorns. And, you know, that's why, and so I'm saying that I know some older Longhorn fans know exactly who Shawn Rogers is and get it. The younger ones may not. Shawn was a tremendous player. Jerry, I look at it now, and this talks about defensive tackle recruiting as a whole. All of a sudden, Texas goes from nobody committed at defensive tackle to probably one of the key pieces of the entire recruiting class being committed, because Sharma uniquely was that over-the-ball nose tackle guy or shade defensive tackle. He's so big, he can eat blocks, and that's what Pete Kwiatkowski's system really needs.
Yeah, no, for sure. And look, when you add the athleticism to it, and I think the versatility is what makes him what he is. You can play him over the ball, but you see the athleticism and the initial quickness and explosion, that natural too. This is not a really developed guy. Look, his stance isn't even consistent at times. He's not maximizing his stance athletically. So he's kind of that one of those guys that you can do anything with in a scheme. I mean, that's how talented this guy is. And so it's a huge win for Texas. One, it gets the ball rolling. Look, he flipped from Oregon, right? This is a guy that Alabama's still been recruiting. Nobody's backed off of him despite his commitment to Oregon. He's clearly one of the top defensive linemen in the country. I have him as a 4-star plus, right? We kind of have to grade guys as we off our experience. So a 4-star plus for me, Bobby's a top 150 level prospect in America. I believe that's what he is. And so if you add up all the defensive linemen that you rank nationally at that position and as a 4-star plus, there's 10, 12, 14 guys. I mean, he is one of those guys.
Yeah, I get it. And so there's not many to go around. And so Texas getting one is extremely important. All right, let's talk about the actual recruitment of him. Because we talked about his ability, et cetera. Rod's going to talk a little bit more of that in a few minutes. But his recruitment was really, it's been up and down all over the place. He's been committed to Washington at one time, I believe. Then he committed to Oregon a month and a half ago. But Steve Sarkisian, in true Steve Sarkisian style, stayed after it, recruited through the whistle. I know some people are tired of that thing, but I wrote today and this morning on ontexasfootball.com. I was like, okay, if you don't want to say recruit through the whistle, let's call it keep the faith, because something there about what Steve Sarkisian does resonates with players. And that's exactly what Texas did here. What do you make of Kenny Baker, the new defensive line coach, and his ability to recruit here and show that he could still get after it? Pete Kwiatkowski has some context there, as well as Johnny Nansen. This is a big one for Sark in California. Yes. Your thoughts in general on the whole recruitment aspect of it?
The first part of it is it's a big win in California because Texas has been doing well with the kids from California. They've got more to campus. They'd scheduled more for official visits, but look at the commit list, right? This is a big one for Johnny Nansen. He's did a great job in the portal once he got to Texas in short order, but from a high school recruiting, this is a big one for him because he came in and started this recruitment of Sharma prior to Kenny Baker really being on staff, right? Because Kenny Baker came from the NFL. So this is big level of success for Johnny Nansen there because this is a guy that Oregon, Washington, USC, all your West Coast schools wanted badly. Then when Kalen DeBoer goes from Washington to Alabama, Courtney Morgan, his GM of football, goes with him, which was key in this recruitment. So Johnny Nansen, they've effectively won a recruitment, and there's still a ways to signing day. Schools aren't going to back off, but let's just say right now they've won a recruitment out of Folsom, California, which Texas hasn't had signed a scholarship player from there. I don't believe ever. Not Folsom High, maybe. And then, you know, they beat Alabama, they beat Oregon, they beat USC, they beat all these schools, Washington, for him. Georgia came in and offered Josiah Sharma. Again, if you want to know how talented he is, everybody came in and offered him. But so that was a big win for Johnny Nansen. Kenny Baker, obviously, I think there's a transition for a guy like Kenny Baker. He didn't come from Alabama or Georgia and head to the Miami Dolphins. He came from Western Kentucky and went to the Miami Dolphins. These are his first real national recruitments that he's been in. So think about leaving the NFL, coming in late like he did, and saying, all right, here's 6 guys, you know, let's go recruit these guys. Where you're going up against guys that have had 2-year relationships with this kid. That is, you're not working from the front of the line there. You're working from the back of the line trying to move up as far as relationships as a position coach go. Same thing with Myron Charles, who Texas is still recruiting. Odell Hagens has been on this kid two plus years now. That's a long time for a new coach to come in and try to get in there. Bo Davis and Brandon Brown, Zion Williams. So it's good. It's big for Kenny Baker because I think he's finding his way in national recruitments, which he'd never been in before. So this is a big win for him too. And then Steve Sarkisian, look, it continues to chip away at this. You know, Sark said in front of the THSCA this weekend, CJ had the video, he didn't look concerned. He's almost like, wake me up in December, dude. I mean, that's kind of like how he is. Why is he like that? Brandon Baker, Kobe Black, Ryan Wingo, Wardell Mack, Ty Anthony Smith, Xavier Filsaime, Aaron Butler in the last class. None of those guys were committed to Texas right now. 2 of those guys didn't even have offers. One was committed to Florida. 2 were committed to Florida. Filsaime didn't have an offer. One's committed to A&M. They're in some real dog fights, street fights for Brandon Baker and Ryan Wingo with Ohio State and Missouri. This is who he is. We saw it since the 2022 class. Sark kind of likes these battles. I think based on some of the things that happened late in the June, early July, maybe it motivated them even a little bit more, especially Sark.
Let's keep on just Sharma right now for a second because I think he's a really important piece of the puzzle here. Okay, and let's talk about that. Is he, if not, is he one of the top 2 or 3 most important commitments in this class at this point?
Yes. Yeah, I don't have any doubt really about that. I just think he's such a high-level guy. I think he is what Georgia and Alabama have been playing with for the last decade on the defensive line. That's the level of talent. And maybe I'm wrong one day. Have been before, but that's what I think you're looking at with that. Kenneth Grant at Michigan. These level guys, that's what I think this kid can be if he goes and maximizes his talent. That's the most important piece for all these guys. But I think he's that important of a recruit for Texas. And it also, Bobby, takes a little pressure off, man. That D-line commitments class had this.
Yep.
And everybody that visited in June had gone somewhere else. literally Oregon, FSU, LSU. I mean, and DJ Sanders is going to decide August 8th. It's a huge recruitment for Texas, one, because of his talent level. He's absolutely what Alabama and Georgia have been winning national championships with and getting drafted. And two, it starts – Texas needed some momentum at this position. And I'll say this. When you look at Lance Jackson and you look at Smith or Rogbo and you add Josiah Sharma, suddenly you're like, okay, go get a couple more really good defensive linemen and we're ready to go. It's amazing how one commitment can change the perspective.
Yeah, a good point. I tell you what, Jerry, you had me at Sean Rogers. For people, I'm a little bit older, and I remember Sean coming out of high school. Do
you see the similarities, or do you think I'm off by?
No, I think that the thing that they have is they're big, but they're still hyper athletic.
Yes,
that's what you're trying to describe.
Yes.
I saw Sean Rogers do a backflip at 305 pounds.
Right.
So I know exactly what you're getting at, and has good first step quickness, etc. It's a big deal. All right. Let's give way here a little bit, Jerry. This has been good talking about Josiah Sharma, the latest commitment for the Longhorns. Let's give way here to Rod Babers, who has his breakdown of the young man out of Folsom, California. And before I go there, though, one last note to you, Josiah Sharma. Hook 'em.
Josiah Sharma, the defensive tackle out of California. What I love about his game initially that jumps off the film is his BGO, his first step. He's got an explosive first step. And maybe my number one trait that I look for in defensive linemen. How do they get off the ball? And he gets off the ball in a hurry. Also, what I love about his game is awareness. You've been watching when you watch the film. There are plays where he almost can sense that it's a screen pass or that the offense is trying to deceive him. And there you go right there. That the offense tried to deceive him, and yet he will go out there and be able to make a play. It's great awareness. So if it was the college football video game, his awareness rating, it'd be one of the higher ratings for his overall skill set. Plays on the other side of the ball, on the other side of the line of scrimmage. He's a disruptive defender, very disruptive at the point of attack, and he can push the pocket or push the pile. So if we're talking about the run game, if he's being double teamed, he can anchor and push the pocket with a double team, or he can push the pile as well in the run game if he needs to. I love that about his game too. He's what I like to describe as slippery. He can play slippery, meaning it's very hard for offensive linemen to get proper hand placement on him, to get a grip on him. I think that's really good. I think he's very, very active. And especially right there at the point of attack. Long arms. You're talking about a wingspan. I believe his wingspan is somewhere in 79 inches, and he uses every bit of that frame. He's a guy that played on the offensive line, played both sides of the ball, so he's got high football IQ. But what you have to love about his game is the amount of upside here, because he's pretty raw overall. So there's a ton of upside with this young man. And one thing I think that you could really look forward to him is kind of a rarity with young players. He can play, I believe he can play nose if he needs to. Most defensive tackles these days, they're going to play the 3 technique. Even look at the University of Texas, a lot of 3 techniques on campus, but it's rare to find a guy that can play the 3 and also play the nose for you and play over the ball. I believe Josiah Sharma has the ability to do that if necessary. So I think that's also something that adds value to his skill set overall. But there's no question about it. His elite trait has got to be his ability to get off the football, his BGO, that explosive first step. And like I said, as a football player overall, tremendous amounts of awareness in his game. And he's got things you can't teach, right? You're recruiting traits that you cannot teach. And the long wingspan, the long arms. I mean, this guy is 6'5", damn near 300 pounds. Those are things that you cannot teach. You can't coach those types of measurables, those types of tangibles in a player. And I believe that's what makes him such a elite prospect. But I believe the football IQ, I looked at it, I noticed the awareness in his game, and then did a little research and found out he played on both sides of the ball. I believe he's a guy that probably has really high football IQ if that is tested as well. But he's a space eater, eats up a lot of space. Listen, defensive tackle is a position. You just look at the highest levels at the NFL, it's starting to become a premium position. Why is it a premium position? First of all, guys who are 6'5", 300 pounds, not easy to come by. Those guys are rare. But then the ability to be able to stop the run on early downs and be able to rush the passer on passing downs and on third downs. And you're looking at a player in Josiah Sharma that might have that kind of upside if he reaches a guy that can be disruptive and a elite run defender on early downs, and possibly be a guy that can also be a pass defender and a pass rusher on those later downs, on third downs, on predictable passing downs, a guy at D tackle that shouldn't have to leave the field. That's the kind of upside you're looking for in Josiah Sharma. So I think that is probably my overall synopsis, but there's a lot to love about this player overall and his overall skill set and the upside of his skill set. And D tackle is one of those positions right now hard to find in the state of Texas. You got to look all around the map to try to find really good D tackles these days. And Texas is going to be trying to stockpile athletes like Josiah Sharma. So that's my overall synopsis of Josiah Sharma. Really good looking prospect at the defensive tackle position. You got to get more and more of those guys, and it takes time to develop those young defensive tackles. So you got to get them in the system early and then start trying to move those guys, develop those guys to their ultimate upside.